Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for another Q&A session. It was a short notice Q&A session. I think everyone knows that 1 week I do in English and one week I do in Turkish. So I assume the listeners are aware that of my schedule. So I might have announced this a bit late than usual time. So there wasn't so many questions. Let's put it that way. So, but there was an important question, two questions in total. But the second one I didn't really understand entirely what it means. So I'll just skip that one. So we are going to talk about the future of Hizmet movement. If you are at this point joined to do the conversation, please do not hesitate to share or like or send the message around, so we'll have more people joining us. The question at hand is on your screen now, so you shall see that in a moment time. So if you can see that, Mutlu 2019, a futuristic character apparently, is saying that, what do you think about the future of Hizmet movement in general and the future of its followers, especially in Turkey, as it is going to be a fully global social movement or marginalized, radicalized and localized? I think it's a very important question. I will try to get to answering that, and I'll just open the live chat on YouTube so that I can at least communicate from here if you want to say anything. So, as I said, it's a very important and a very big topic. First of all, there is more than one question in here. There is 3 questions, but I'll try to wrap it into one. It says, what do you think about the future of the Hizmet movement in general and the future of its followers, especially in Turkey? So, the Hizmet movement, its followers, and its future in Turkey. And even the 4th question, is it going to be a fully global social movement or marginalized, radicalized and localized? I'll just ignore the localized bit because where it is going to be localized. Anyway, so let's start with the future of Hizmet movement. It is very hard to say that it will go in one way or another. It's all wishful thinking. People who want movement to perish, to finish, they feel like there is enough evidence that suggests that it will finish off soon, and people who thinks that it will flourish look at the evidence that suggests otherwise, that suggests positive changes, that suggest the hopeful future. They prefer to believe in the second one, that it will flourish. However, in my opinion, it's in the middle. It can go both ways. It can go both ways for the specifically same reasons interpreted in different ways. First of all, there are a lot of things are changing. Like, for instance, Hizmet movement has lost majority of its human resources, which means human capital. That's the most valuable asset Hizmet movement so far. They had the most educated members, the most able members, the most organizational capacity of the movement is imprisoned. I say that knowing that there is thousands of people outside, but it's also safe to assume that the movement has its best brains and muscles in Turkey, both financially and mentally. Let's say, in a way, they kept the best of best in Turkey for a reason. I don't know. Although the Gulen emphasized a lot about migrating out of Turkey, the decision makers decided that Turkey needs the best brains. So the human capital has been slashed or diminished immense amount. We're talking about 200,000 people are effectively captive in Turkey. Their passports are cancelled. They can't move out from Turkey. They can't leave Turkey. Out of them, 60,000 of these teachers, engineers, doctors, lawyers, most educated people, academics are imprisoned, and their wives their families are pinned to them. They can't move anywhere while they are in prison and everything. So that's a big amount. Up to the majority of Hizmet business people are being arrested, and their properties and financial belongings are confiscated by the state. That can amount up to $50 billion. These are some of the biggest company owners like Istiqbal and Akın İpek and other businessmen who have been persecuted either outside the country, or the majority of their wealth has been confiscated. So Hizmet lost a lot of its income. Hizmet lost a lot of its freedom, both in Turkey and abroad. It's risky to travel around the world, even if you are outside Turkey, because in any connection that you might end up in Bahrain or in different third world countries or some various pro-Erdogan countries, you might be stopped and arrested and deported back to Turkey. So the freedom of movement have been diminished a lot. The trust have been tainted, in Turkey and abroad. Many people want to ignore this fact, but Hizmet movement become a bit like a suspicious organization, although there isn't a proven crime yet. But Erdogan regime has managed to taint the credentials or the let's say credit record of the movement, both in Turkey massively with the mass media, but even abroad by successful propaganda means put in place. So, but there are some stuff that increased on the other side. So these are the things decreased: the human capital, financial capital, freedom and trust. These are decreased. That makes the movement almost, put into a death row. It's about to, at a point, it is going to finish sort of by losing out, by bleeding out these issues. Eventually it will become a marginal small group, or at least Erdogan is hoping to see that. But the things that are increased are suspicion about the movement has increased. It's not easy, it's not an unknown organization now around the world, both among the Muslims and non-Muslims in Western counterparts. In fact, when you approach someone, now they approach to a person where there is a lot of controversy around it. Many people think that, no, because Erdogan is a dictator or an authoritarian leader, it gives Hizmet movement a credit, but I don't think it's true. They think, like an Islamist movement versus another Islamist movement, if they are Muslim, most of the Muslims are, pocketed by Erdogan anyway. They trust have been both almost in with the grandeur, with the pro-Palestinian talk, and with the propaganda of Erdogan effectively. So the suspicion about the movement is increased. The financial pressure on the movement is increased, as well as the incomes are decreased, which means most of the people who used to contribute Hizmet activities now are in a position to ask support from the fellow Hizmet members. So there is a global charity campaign that is called Muavenet. Hizmet people abroad are trying to collect money and help Hizmet people who are being persecuted in Turkey. Unfortunately, they couldn't reach out to wider public, and they are trying to sort this themselves this charitable activity. So it is mainly on Hizmet people's shoulders rather than a global charitable company via Oxfam or another charity. So in long term, it will just increase the burden on Hizmet movement. Because there'll be more people will be persecuted. People who had some savings maybe will become financially depending on the support from abroad, but the numbers abroad will diminish. Some people who migrated will fail to integrate and fail to have a success story behind them, and they'll become dependent as well. So that will increase the pressure on the movement, will increase and is increasing, which makes everything harder. As I said, no country is almost apart from the Western countries are safe, but even in Western countries, places like Britain are because of Brexit and other stuff seem to be very vulnerable to Erdogan's influence. At least they seem to have a free ticket in these sort of countries, so we don't know how it can be interpreted or reveal itself in the near future. Erdogan recently bought some military equipment from Britain, so we know in the anarchical world system, these sort of purchases also can have some other unseen articles attached to them. And the age group is increasing. Like this doesn't look very promising, and it doesn't concern almost anyone, and anyone who mentioned this deemed to be demonized as well. But the problem is that the Hizmet movement used to be one of the youngest movements in Turkish history, a very energetic movement. But if you look into it now, the youth element is in decline. It was in decline since 2000. Hizmet movement wasn't able to attract the youth as it used to attract in 90s, 80s. If you watch Ed Gülen's sermons in 80s, 90s, you will see 90% of the listeners are young people, really like teenager young people. But now they all grow up, but they couldn't transfer that ideals to the younger people. And Hizmet movement keeps itself in organizational management level among the let's say relatively senior people, and because of the patriarchal society, it looks like as if anyone raises this as a problem, that growing age of the movement, it looks like as if it is disrespectful. But it is becoming like a mosque with only old attendees. There isn't young enough attendees. Even if you look into these sort of topics on videos like about Hizmet movement, what is the audience that are watching those videos, you would see more than half of that is above 35 years old, 40 years old. And if I had access to Gülen's video blogs and his audience, I wouldn't be surprised to see that his is similar, or like people are even older who are listening Gülen videos weekly. The age is not statistically more younger than, in fact it might be older than it should be. So this growing age, increasing age is another problem. So for all these reasons, Hizmet movement might actually be at the end of its natural life. It seems like it may not be able to transfer that knowledge into a younger generation. You don't see much young people are interested in debates about the Hizmet movement. Even if they were interested, they can be easily shunned. If I were to say, it's almost become a Facebook generation. It was almost moving towards the younger Twitter generation, but it is not certainly on Instagram or Snapchat at all. You can see the lack of youth and the content and the share. It's more like a matter among the senior people. So these are the things that makes it look like that It might be the end of movement, a demise, a regular demise, if you want to see, like everyone used to complain about the quality of the training is not as good as it used to be since 2000 and this and that. But it's not all bleak and bad. There are some good stuff among with this, and some of this stuff can be interpreted in a good way as well. This is the second part of it. For instance, other things are decreasing, especially there was ultra-nationalism within the Hizmet movement before this problem emerged with Erdogan. And until very recently, that ultra-nationalism actually stopped Hizmet to become overspilled outside Turkish boundaries. Let's say, although Hizmet movement has been outside of Turkey since 2019, which makes almost 25, 30 to 27, 28 years in Azerbaijan in different parts of the world. If you look at how many non-Turks are involved in Hizmet activities, it's very, very, very limited numbers. And if you look at how many of them are in senior management roles, it is very, very, very, very limited as well. It's actually non-existent. So, which means the Hizmet ideals, whatever they are, however you define them, are not easily transferable, or it looks like whoever is trying to transfer them are not successful to transfer them into recipients, which means that Hizmet is almost like an authentic, exotic group of people who emerged in 70s, 80s, 90s, and that the movement grow bigger with them and grow older with them, and at the end of their biological life, it might finish. So this was partly influenced by the ultra-nationalism, I would say. I will emphasize it, very, very being very Turkish nationalistic, and which made, like almost perceiving Turkish identity as a very special thing, which in turn made it harder to translate some of these Hizmet ideas to the wider world, Muslim world. There are some success cases, I don't deny them, but it's not enough to make up to percentage. It's not enough to give hope. We're talking about 1.5 billion Muslim world, and if you look at among the Hizmet participants, there wouldn't be more than 5% maybe non-Turkish people. And if you look into managerial position, it might be even less than that, which doesn't give any good hope. So by dropping the nationalism, it might open up to a wider pool, which is an uncharted area, which is a new area for Hizmet movement. It can be the solution, rather than trying to get the support of the 80 million Turkish people, whom seem to be not willing to be very supportive to Hizmet people. If Hizmet can change its policies or its approach towards the wider Muslim communities and try to establish good communication channels and of course create that fusion between different communities, then it may actually, with the decrease of the nationalism, it may find a even greater support base, which might be probably the nightmare of Erdogan. And this support base doesn't mean, as it is understood now, that these host countries are supporting Gülen's school activities, because that is just, we support you, stay there. This means actually involving them in every level of the activities. The second thing is like every organization have a resistance to change. So that resistance to change is in decrease as well. There is more demand for the change, let's say, which may extend the life of the movement. So it is good to see with the established structures are confiscated or destroyed. Maybe there is a hope to re-establish even newer structure with a better fresh ideas and extend the life of the Hizmet movement. And the limitations of the Turkish Islam is in decrease as well, which may open a wider area. So, for instance, there was a lot of stuff that Hizmet movement wasn't able to do before, because it would have been perceived wrong by the Turkish people. It would have upset the nationalist supporters and this and that. Like, for instance, the Turkish Olympiads used to be very, very Turkish Olympiads, which in this process become an intercultural event with multiple languages and multiple activities. Anyway, so that Turkishness expectations or limitations are in decrease as well, and now Hizmet can move out of those Turkish comfort zone and maybe create something much more unique and much more needed. On the other hand, again, there is, some stuff are increased, which creates hope for the future of the movement, is the demand for the change. Many people want to see a change, and some of the change has happened. In senior levels, there has been some changes have been happened apparently since the crisis emerged. There is new managerial level. Motivation seems to increase among the people who remained. Simply there isn't a lack of motivation. In fact, there is a increase in motivation. So it's less numbers, but maybe more motivated. I would say some people are still in trauma or in shock, so they don't know how to deal with the reality of the current issues. But still, motivation is very high. And there is an increased globalization this time with force, because many people who migrated before actually never imagined themselves remaining or staying in a migrant role. Now many people are trying to find a way to become indefinite citizens of their own host countries, and really settling down, and this opens the perspectives and broadens the horizon, and it will create an impact in the movement. So that increases a good one, and the empathy is hopefully increasing. It's not yet in a structural level, but the Hizmet movement, whether we like it or not, was mainly from a lower background, but from a rural working class background, but moved with education into higher middle classes, but always perceived the world from the better side of it. So now it's being persecuted. There is an empathy about the persecuted people are being increased. That's a very valuable lesson that would lead Hizmet people to do a lot of global activities. So because of this side of the increases and decreases, I think there is a good chance that Hizmet become a global movement rather than a transnational Turkish movement, a global movement like Amnesty or Oxfam, and it would create the exact need that the world is needed. So I should say that this is not yet the agenda, but it seems like Hizmet has been, Hizmet movement as a whole came to that crossroads, and there is going to be a decision, like a majority of the movement will choose to go in one direction, and that will be the Hizmet we see. So it may try to hold its breath until the persecution is over in Turkey, so that they can go back and make it as it used to be, and always live with the dream of the good old days that they used to enjoy before this persecution started, or which might actually kill the movement in let's say in a decade or less, or maybe a bit more. Of course, there is always a group of Hizmet, an organization remains, no matter how less in numbers. They believe it's more faithful to stay in that way, or it can reorganize itself and find a wider support pool among the Muslims around the world who cares about education, dialogue, and charity activities, and the non-Muslims who cares about the same issues. And it can reorganize its tasks about more current issues. So let's say include the extremism and stuff. There is a massive need about extremism. There is a massive need for a Muslim organization, a global Muslim organization, to take part in and contribute in the modern way, not the ways that it has been prescribed in 90s or 2000. There is a new problem. It's a global problem. It requires a global solution. Global meaning not all around the world. I also mean with the same cosmopolitan mindset. It requires to provide an alternative, a positive alternative to eradicate that sort of a problem. So for that reason, in my opinion, I don't really know which way it will go. I listened both of the arguments. Some says that it's all fine, it's all as it used to be, it will go as it is, and it will become like as it used to be in old days. And some says that the old days will never come, it will move forward, there will be structural changes, and it will be a new Hizmet movement. So that's it. But in specifically in Turkey, I don't think there is a near future. There is a possibility in Turkey because there is too much scar in Turkey in both parties, and that scar seems to it will increase. Many people will blame Hizmet for the existing war and maybe the existing recession when it turns into crisis. Erdogan will blame Hizmet and other, interest lobby and this and that sort of like foreign powers as expected. And even Erdogan's alternatives like the recently formed E Party or Republican Party are not very keen on Hizmet. So, the reaction of whatever Erdogan is won't be pro-Hizmet as well. So it might take a generation for Hizmet to go back to Turkey. But even then it will be like a problematic relationship. It won't be as it used to be. It won't be a defining position. So it will be a more problematic topic to handle, but it won't be same as business as usual. So now that is my answer to the future of Hizmet movement. Thanks for the question. Now on YouTube there is someone says a couple of questions. Let me try to read that. We don't know how to live Hizmet, see it as a profession. Some abis and ablas are responsible for everything. We only do Hizmet when we get an order. Almost no one acts without an order. That's the problem really. Normally it was supposed to be anyone, if you see any problem, you take initiative. If you see anything undone, you do that. But now it looks like you don't do anything unless you are told to do so. So that's a big problem, as Yalcin Tekce said. And some people sacrifice everything, even their personality. He has family, children, and doesn't care about them. I believe Hizmet should not be like this. We have to go further than everyone. I'm so sad because I feel Hizmet person had to found or establish, the Khan Academy, for example. We have thousands of very nice-hearted teachers, but our system didn't let them to do anything, I think. Yes, that's partly the summary of the problem. So this is what I think we'll be talking in the near future as well. Thank you very much for joining. I think it has been almost half an hour for a very important question we spent here. If you enjoyed the conversation, please join us in the below comment section on YouTube. If you agree, disagree, or have your own opinion, if you think I have been too harsh or too optimist or pessimist, please join the conversation. And if you want to see this sort of videos coming regularly as every week, one Q&A time in English and one Hizmet talk in Turkish. If you want to see them in increased production, please do consider supporting me via the Patreon, the links that I'm sharing, and also hopefully follow those links. And I'll be seeing you again in the near future. This week, normally I'm supposed to do a Hizmet talk on Monday, tomorrow in Turkish, but I will postpone it to Tuesday, and it will be a different audience, a very interesting conversation. Hopefully, if I can get permission, there'll be a live presentation about human rights and amnesty in a London location. Thank you very much for joining. Assalamu alaikum.